Welcome to Holy Grit Leadership That Lasts, the podcast for leaders who are done with fluff and hungry for depth. Hey, listen, if you're looking for more than just quick wins and shallow strategies in leadership, you're in the right place. We're talking bold, ethical, and effective leadership fueled by timeless truth from scriptures and built to withstand the pressure of the real world. Okay, now listen, whether you're leading a church, running a business, managing a team, or just trying to hold your life together on Monday morning, Holy Grit Leadership is here to help you lead with courage, clarity, and conviction. Let's dig in, let's lead well, let's build some leadership that lasts. Okay, it's time. Episode 3. I already got Matt shenanigans happening. This episode is leading when you're tired, frustrated, or just over it. How to lead with purpose when your tank is on empty. Hello, everybody. My name is Gene Russell, the superintendent leader. This is my co-host that's already causing lots of problems, Matt Waitley, pastor at a local church, former agronomist, and, stuck his hands up cows' butts and stuff like that. He's not as important.
I'm not a vet, but I have had to deliver babies before, I guess. So.
Well, that's a great intro to start because
think about that, like pastor/baby deliverer.
Well, I'm already tired and frustrated and over this conversation. So this podcast is going to be a home run for those of you that work with people like Matt.
Yeah.
And so that, but before we do, it's time for our favorite segment, which is
the beer tasting.
The beer review.
The beer review.
You said that so beautifully.
So this is called Fairy Nectar.
Fairy Nectar.
And this is from Cross Strain Brewing Company in La Vista, Nebraska. So if you're ever going through La Vista, you can probably stop by a brewery and get that. If you know anybody that works there or know these guys, let them know we're reviewing their beer today.
Cross Strain Brewing. Now, La Vista, I will give La Vista props. So if you're not watching the video, the can is a skull with a butterfly coming behind it, but with flowers on its eyes. Yeah. It's a nice touch. It's saying, hey, listen, this is going to be a little scary, but you're going to enjoy this. Yeah. And so I'm not a huge IPA guy, but I'm kind of excited about
this.
It
is an IPA. And if you're going to drink an IPA, let it be a hazy IPA, because that's what this is. Well, hazy means it's more hoppy, like there's more.
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
I saw the word fairy nectar and I was instantly drawn in. Yeah. I don't know what fairy nectar is, but I'm about ready to try it. Matt, you try it first.
Yeah.
And you let me know kind of your first initial reaction. Well, as you know, we are a man of many words, and is one of them.
Yeah, well, as a semi-pro beer taster, I would say that this beer is very hoppy. You can really taste the hops. And I like a good IPA once in a while. And this one, for IPA, I'm going to give it a 4. It's real out of 4 out of 5.
I am pleasantly surprised with this.
I know.
So typically an IPA never registers over a 1 out of 5 in my book. But since we only rate and review great beers, all right, Cross Strain Brewing, you made me a believer in the only IPA I've ever liked. This is Fairy Nectar Hazy India Pale Ale from La Vista, and I'm going to give this is a high for me because IPAs are, I just can't stand, but I'm going to give it a 3.8 out of 5, which is a high score.
That's a good score.
That's amazing.
And you can the nectar kind of pops in it. It's a little
How
bit
does
of
nectar
fruit.
pop?
Huh?
How does nectar pop? Can you explain this? I think you're just saying words now.
No.
Nectar's popping.
No, nectar, it pops in your mouth.
Well said. Yeah, as now you are now more clear on how does nectar pop? Well, it just pops.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
awesome.
You can taste it, right? Can you not taste
I can, actually. I'm giving you a hard time.
You taste the fairy more than the nectar. I taste the nectar.
Well, that's more manly. Yeah, I do. I was really interested to see what the fairy brought into this conversation, and the fairy brought and delivered an amazing IPA.
Yes,
so
thank you.
Cross Strain, if you're listening, shout us out. We'll be happy to take any Cross Strain brews with us and give you a great review. And so there goes that segment. One of our favorite segments is beer review time.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Matt, I'm really excited about today's episode.
Yeah.
So the whole premise of leaders leading stoically, walking out into, the darkness and illuminating light, is all well and good.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when we are just frustrated, we're tired, and we're over it? I'm excited to talk about this as leadership, because I'm assuming we're going to get pretty vulnerable here, in terms of how you have been tired and frustrated in your leadership, how I have been as well, and how everyone else might be. And so we're going to get started just in your general sense. What does leading on empty really look like? And why does it feel so hard to admit that when we're there?
I think this is one that is a very important episode, because if you're a leader, inevitably you're gonna get there. You're going to get empty and you're going to get tired. And the key is to fill up. And we're going to talk a lot about what that means and how we need to fill up. But being empty and working on empty consistently is very dangerous. And it can hurt you, and it can hurt your organization. So that's why this is an important episode. We really care about you. We care about your organization. We've seen what this can do. So this is important today.
Yes. And I will tell you right now, if you're a leader that has anxiety, if you're a leader that is feeling stuck, if you're a leader that is feeling like you're not making a difference, this episode, I believe, I truly do, is going to be revelating. Is revelating a word?
No.
Okay.
Let me make a correction.
It's going to be illuminating for you. Is that better? I'm sorry. Sometimes I make up words and I just think that they're real in my head. Revelatory?
Revelatory.
Revelatory.
Revolutionary, maybe.
It might be any of those things.
Yeah.
And so, as you can tell, listen, this podcast is for those that are, I don't use the word burnout very loosely, because I'm always not a believer in, I'm typically not a believer in burnout, but I am a believer in being tired and frustrated and on empty. So, Matt, why do you think that so many leaders just push through, and I'm going to use the word burnout here, but just being exhausted instead of asking for help or like hitting pause in their leadership? Why do they push through?
I think in part it could be several things, but one could be pride. The other could be self-esteem, and obviously that's tied to pride. But we all have this propensity to want to just push through and gut it out sometimes. Sometimes it's necessary and we have to do that. But if that's the pattern of our leadership, it's not sustainable. That a wise pastor told me when I started early on that, Matt, you're not running a sprint, you're running a marathon. And so you need to go at a pace that is sustainable. And I like to drive hard. I'm a visionary. I like to start new things and new ministries and new churches. I like that sort of thing, but I can't sustain that 24/7. And so I think part of that is like leaders are naturally given those leadership gifts. But if we don't manage those well, just like any gift, it can become very damaging.
Well, and what are some of the characteristic repercussions that come from being on empty? So when you are just completely run down, what is it like to work with Matt when you have nothing really left to give that day or that week? Because you have too many irons in the fire. Sometimes that's a reason. Sometimes something heavy is going on.
Rancher analogy.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, the too many irons in the fire thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a rancher. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought. Oh, yeah.
No.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think when it's for all of us, right? You get short with people. You get angry. You're not very fun to be around. When I'm stressed out, it's not a good thing. I've really worked on that because the fruit of the Spirit doesn't care about your feelings. You have to be displaying the fruit of the Spirit even when it's hard. And we're going to talk about a passage where Jesus does this that is so amazing. And when you think about what he was going through at this time, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But how about you, Gene? Like, what's it like to be around you? I mean, I kind of get the idea because I'm around you a lot.
Right. Yes. When the tank is running on E, I actually have a meeting at the beginning of the year and explain to the other leaders what that's going to look like. And I sometimes,
Really?
I tell them the warning signs that I am either being running on empty or I have something going on that I can't take my mind off of. And so I have what we call a clarity conversation at the very beginning of every year that says, as a reminder, if you see me start to constantly walk away from you, like slowly fade away, just know that I'm trying not to be rude, but I need the conversation to wrap up. And these are body language things that I have not been able to correct, so I just need to explain them to people. And so one of the things is if you and I are in a meeting and I needed you to wrap up because I am really busy and I need to get something done, I might walk you to the door or I might start to walk away from the conversation, and that might be a sign. Another thing I do is I say, hey, listen, when I don't come in with energy to a meeting, or when I don't come in with that normal Gene Russell, let's go, pound the desk, let's fight this out, I'm excited about this, let's roll. Just know that there's probably some things that has nothing to do with you that are going on that I'm really trying to push through. And so I think as leaders, it's important to describe to your staff what it's going to look like when you are running low. And when you identify those things, people can then help. And that's another aspect. So, we talk about it as the 21st mile. So in a marathon, it's not it's 26 point whatever miles for you marathon runners. Sorry if I'm, getting this wrong, but a marathon is 26 point whatever miles. And it's not, you would think it's the 25th mile that's the hardest, but it's actually the 21st, Matt. And the reason is you still have a little bit of ways to go, and you can't just, okay, I'm almost there, but you're not at the finish line. And so they call it the 21st mile theory, to where people's negative thoughts and negative reactions, where people mostly quit, is in that 21st mile. And so we talk about it as a staff. What's your 21st mile? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And how can we help? And as a leader, I think it's important to recognize your 21st mile.
Yeah.
So you're saying you're short with people, maybe, and these are common, but you're short with people, maybe you're not as happy.
I'm withdrawn. Yeah.
Withdrawn.
And I'm one of those people that I wear my heart on my sleeve. So got me.
Yes, you sure do.
And so my staff will be like, oh yeah, that's true. Matt's awful. He wears his heart on his sleeve a lot.
What a powder.
Yeah. So, but like, I just can't help it. Like, and there are things like, for pastors, and I know there's a lot of pastors that are watching this, and we deal with stuff a lot of times that is really hard. I recently went to a natural doctor, and we're trying this kind of new alternative medicine stuff.
Ooh,
that's
okay.
A whole other thing. But they do a scan of your brain, and she's like, it was really eye-opening for me. She's like, your brain is like the brain of a first responder. She goes, hey, you could put your brain next to an EMT and it would look exactly the same by the things that are making it ping.
Wow.
And so the reason for that is we're dealing with crisis situations. We're dealing with, moms who lose a miscarriage, and we're going to emergency rooms, like recently with a girl with cancer. We're there in those moments, and our brain reacts a certain way. And so we need to understand that those things can create a physiological also reaction in our bodies. And so
yes.
Like for me, when I was going through some really stressful time, and as you guys all know, like it ebbs and flows, and there are seasons where it can be really, really heavy. And, I have a tendency not to eat. I'll withdraw. I sometimes go through seasons of spiritual depression, and I don't like admitting that, but it's really hard. Like, I have a hard time even talking about it because those lows are really low.
And, and then I think in your world, and you tell me about this, you also have the added pressure of continuing to show up when you have nothing left to give.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't just say your crisis is not important to me right now. You can't just say, I'll get to your crisis next week.
Yeah.
You have to continue to show up. So how do you do that? How do you keep showing up when you are you're on empty and you emotionally are tapped, right? Because sometimes, and I don't know if you've been like this, sometimes people will come with you with a problem and they're expecting you to be emotionally invested, but you're just cold because you don't have anything left in the tank.
Yeah.
So how do you keep showing up for others when you have nothing else to give?
Okay, well, I think our last podcast we are talking about leading like Jesus.
Yes.
And so,
what a good one.
like
Episode 2, by the way.
yeah, we try to lead like Jesus, and I look at Jesus's ministry, and when you see what happens in his ministry, one of the amazing things that happens is in Matthew chapter 14, and Jesus finds out that his best friend and his cousin has been beheaded.
John the Baptist, right?
John the Baptist, and this is at the end, and it's actually in verses 1-9, and John's disciples come to him and they tell him, John's been beheaded. And listen to what happens immediately after this. Verse 13, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing this, the crowds followed him. But I want to stop right there. So he withdrew to a solitary place. And so that's where, there are times we have to withdraw, but it doesn't mean the crowds are going to stop. Look what happens. The crowds, hearing this, the crowds followed him on foot from the town. So there's a couple parts that I really want to highlight here. Number one, we have to be sensitive to what others are going through, and that includes our leaders. And so, I've tried to be very honest with the church about things. When I lost my dad 2 years ago, and the church was so compassionate and kind and gave me the time to spend with him in his last, moments, and they kind of let me be and let me grieve.
Right.
And that was amazing. I love my church family, but we have to train our people in that as well. And we have to do the same for them. These crowds had no compassion on Jesus. We're so selfish. We're like, I need my fix right now. I need to get what I need right now. And we don't think about what someone else is going through. Think about what Jesus was going through. And the crowds just followed him. They didn't care about what he was going through. And so, but listen to how Jesus responded.
Okay.
This is leadership when you don't feel like leading.
Okay, this is right up the alley. What did Jesus do here?
When Jesus landed, he saw this large crowd. So he looks over. He comes from his solitary place, and he's got enough fuel in the tank to begin to give more. He sees this large crowd, and he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. So there are going to be times when we don't feel like doing what we need to do, but we do it because we have compassion on others. It's about getting our eyes off of us and onto others. And yes, Jesus was going through something really hard, but he got his eyes off of himself and his own pain, and he had compassion on others. That's Jesus perfect in this.
Yeah,
he did it perfectly.
Absolutely.
And it's harder for us to do this as human beings, but it's something we need to do. We live in a culture right now that's all about therapy and me. And I get it. There's a place for therapy.
Yes.
But it's such a self-centered culture where I got to get mine.
How do you feel? How does this make you? All about you.
No, it gets us so self-focused that we can't see past ourselves. And so I just want to encourage everyone watching, get your eyes up, and then you can see the needs of your brothers and sisters. You can see the needs of your team, and be kind and compassionate.
And to be honest, one of the things I tell my own kids and my family is when we are stuck in that rut and it's all about, I feel this, I just can't get out of this. One thing we always talk about is let's go serve. Let's go do something that is not about us, but that helps others.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I have no idea, but I will tell you that simple act of just, I'm sad, I am depressed, I have anxiety. When you go and just do something for someone else, all that magically goes away.
It does.
Right? Just shockingly. And so sometimes, we need to be alone. We need to be with our thoughts. We need to, when someone passes away, you need a period of mourning.
It's so
important. But then you can't stay there. And this is what happens to so many leaders. And I do this. I have this big problem when I am too many irons in the fire.
Thank you, Richard.
Rancher
You're
reference.
trying to be like me. I'm tired of it. Be
when
yourself.
when I am in full Yellowstone mode and I have all sorts of problems going on, and
you would be more like a pig farmer.
Yeah, shout out Governor Pillen, type of thing. So, so when I have these problems, Matt, I tend to stay in my office. And it does worse things for me. I stay in my office. I retreat, and I'm not doing anything other than just handling emails, and it's worse. But that what gets me out of my rut, typically in my own workplace as a superintendent, is I go visit classrooms. I go visit the principals. I go visit the kids. I'm stepping out, and then all of a sudden I'm recognizing how I can help and lead and assist and make changes to what we're trying to do. And that really helps. Is that, yes, there's an important time for me to shut my door and to be honest, to pray and to invite the Holy Spirit in. But then there's an important time to go out and serve.
Yeah.
And that's what I truly think that almost all therapy sessions should have is, yes, we need to recognize that you're in this spot, but then you need to go and serve.
Do something.
And so, yeah, absolutely. Do something. And so when you're tired or empty, that kind of leads into the next question. Like, what lies do we often believe as leaders about ourselves when we're tired? What do you think? What are some common things that you think people will think about when they're exhausted or on empty?
Yeah, well, definitely. There is the self-esteem aspect. And for I know a lot of my colleagues in the pastorate, like one of the ways the enemy likes to attack us is inadequacy. We had like every pastor I've talked to, like we feel inadequate. And I think that is a healthy place at some level, and that we have to be humble and saying like, I don't have this, I can't do it without the help of the Lord.
Right.
But at the same time, when we get tired and we're just pushing so hard that we're on empty, that's a deeper level of kind of pride. Like, I can do this. I'm going to push through. And there is a time for us to say, okay, enough's enough. I need to make sure that I'm refueling the tank. And I think there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And we have to do that because we are more susceptible to lies when we're tired.
Yeah. And the imposter syndrome is a real thing. When you are empty and you don't have much left for that day, you begin to feel like you said, you're inadequate. I'm an imposter. I'm not meant to do this. I'm not good enough to do this. Those lies start to set in. And that's something that I want all of us leaders to understand is being tired doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're fighting, right? And so don't forget that when you're exhausted, it just means that you have been in this fight and it's not over yet. And so that's one point I really want to talk about kind of before we start to get into, okay, what are some things that we can do to refuel our tank? What are some things in the pastoral world that you have done to refill your tank?
So I didn't learn this soon enough, but, for me, it's like obviously a biblical principle is taking the Sabbath and actually taking a Sabbath. Now there's a couple of books, I recommend.
Not just a principle, it's a commandment. Right?
Yeah, it is.
I don't mean to correct you or anything.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's a really cool book that we did in one of our classes at church. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it's a great book, and it really reminds us of the things that are important. And Sabbath is one of those. Rest is, God created, and then on the seventh day he rested. And if God had to rest, like how much more do we? So number one is fulfilling God's command to rest for me. And if I don't have my Sabbath, oh man, I know there's times like all of a sudden, there's an emergency, you have to deal with it. Well, then you take a different day.
Yeah.
So as the leader and the boss, a lot of times you can do that. Like you can switch those days. And I do that. I'll take a different day, once in a while. But it's making sure that you take that day. It's a principle that I kind of just like, okay, I don't care that the whole world is trying to get a hold of me on the Sabbath day. My phone is on Do Not Disturb mostly. And I don't worry about it.
And for those of you that are maybe not as deep into your faith and you're just listening as, hey, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I will tell you that I've read studies that where different countries have tried to change the work week to a 9-day work week with the 4 days off, and they have seen the the productivity plummet, Matt.
Mm.
So God knows what he was doing. And when he said, hey, on the 7th day he rested, it wasn't, well, if I work 14 days and then I'll take 2 weeks off. No, every 7 days we are intended to recharge. And that brings me to my next point. And I'm so excited to talk about this point because I've been thinking about this a lot. Is we often think about recharging as a vacation when really it needs to be a part of our every week life.
Rhythm.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So it needs to be part of a rhythm of our productivity every week. You have to think of rest not as something that you just eventually do. You have to think of rest as something you need to do.
You need it.
And rest doesn't mean that you are stopping. Rest is part of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you are being a pastor, I always tell our staff, rest is part of our investment into. You need to understand that you need to be able to rest. You need to be able to recharge. And everyone has different ways that they recharge, and I understand that. But if it's not part of your weekly life, I will tell you that so many people will say at the end of the year is when I will take my break.
Yeah.
It's too long. That's the definition of burnout, right? Is when you choose not to take one day out of your week to focus on Christ for us, right? To focus on your family, to focus on intentional, being present where your feet are. And that's a big element. So
with that, Gene, for pastors, a lot of them maybe, pastoring churches where you're like a solo pastor and you're doing it all. As smaller churches tend to be that way. And then, everyone expects you to do it all. If you start early on with this idea, making sure that they understand you're following a biblical principle, you preach on it, and you live it out, because if you don't live it out, your church is not going to live it out. They're going to go, do whatever on the Sabbath day, but you have to model that for them. And also, there's a larger principle at play as well. It's the biblical model of a sabbatical. It's taking that period of time. A sabbatical is not just a vacation. In a sabbatical, you're doing some sort of study in that, but you're not in the regular rhythm of the life of the church where you're constantly being asked and told and going here and there and, working on vision and all this stuff.
Yes.
You're taken out of that for a time. And I'll just throw it as sort of a sidebar. If you're a pastor and you need some help with writing a sabbatical policy, or you would like to talk to me or any of the board members that I have, we have a sabbatical policy. I actually took one. We'll talk about it in a minute, but it was so life-giving for me. But you can't wait until you're about done, because you may not come back.
And I think a lot of leaders think, especially in the way I've thought, I've been a superintendent now. I just finished my 4th year, Matt, and I've thought, if I show any sort of I'm not working at this time, I need rest, then they might think less of me. And after 4 years, what I've realized is I've adjusted my summer hours. I've said, hey, listen, I'm going to intentionally take some time, because during the school year, I'm working sometimes 60 to 70 to sometimes 80 hours a week, right? And it's a lot. And the very first part of it is just admitting that you could be someone that only works 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, but there's a point where you just have to say, oh my gosh, this is not my life. Right? And I was not born to work.
Right.
Just for this organization. I was born to, worship Christ, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And so part of that for me was being bold enough to say, I'm going to adjust my schedule to take some time to make sure I can do this for a long time.
Yeah, you're running a marathon.
Yes.
Sprint.
And that's a big element to all of us when we have to realize where our gas station is.
Mhm.
Where do you go to refuel?
Yeah.
Jesus, he went alone to pray to the Father. As modern day reference, we might go to the lake. I might go on a walk with my wife.
Yeah.
We might go serve. We do
Did you
things.
say surf?
Serve.
Oh.
Yeah, surf the lake of Lake McConaughey, Nebraska. So no, we go, and you have to understand what you do to refuel, and that's
Yeah.
an important element.
So what do you like besides resting? Because I know that's not like there are other things, right? Like what do you do for fun?
Yeah. So for me, actually sitting and doing nothing kills me. Like I get more freaked out. I get a lot more tension in my life. But what I really like to do is I like to take care of things that, like mowing the lawn is enjoyable for me. I love to go on walks with my wife. I love to sit and do practice. Like my kids love sports, so I'll go and throw the ball with them. We'll work on getting better. We'll set goals. I love goal setting with my kids. That's not work for me. I love the discipleship of being a father, and that refuels me. And so areas to where I can go and interact more intentionally with my family. I can be present. Oh my gosh. That is something that just, it's a turbocharge for me. And, with my friends as well, where I can go and just talk to them, have a conversation. That's where I go to refuel. What about you?
I like to work outside. Obviously, I like to, a rope and do all the cowboy stuff. But I also like to golf, and I like to beat you in golf. Would you like to share with the audience who won the last golf game?
Matt and I went golfing. And what he leaves out every time is I gave him one stroke per hole. But this is not a golfing podcast. But just so you know, I'm the better golfer. Matt tries.
Yeah. But no, I think you do have to have some hobbies, like some things that you can do. So here's where I say, okay, but pause for a minute. There's going to be seasons where you may not get the opportunity to do that kind of thing.
Right.
And I was just visiting with a good friend of mine, a ministry that we support in Israel. And the head of that ministry, he's like, we're in constant fear and turmoil. Right now, we've been hiding in bomb shelters. Like there is no rest. And those are the moments when you rely on your faith.
Yes.
Like, well, you don't have anything, you still have Jesus, and you rely on your faith. But for us here in Midwest Nebraska, thank God we're somewhat insulated at the time, right now anyway. And so we can get into these rhythms, and it helps us to be productive and healthy, because if we don't, like, we really will suffer burnout. And for me, I was on the verge. There were 2 times in my career where I thought, okay, I'm done. One of them was early on in my pastorate, when there was some turmoil as I took over this church, and I remember I was downstairs in this house. We were redoing the floor, and I just collapsed, and I just said, I can't do this. And I hadn't taken over yet. I was still the associate pastor. I was about to take over. It was so heavy. And he came over, and he really spoke life into me. And so that's one of the things that I want to make sure that you have as a leader, is someone that can pick you up when you can't move.
This is huge. Yeah. So, and that's a lot of times it's our spouse, but sometimes our spouse is, has a predisposition to just, blow smoke at you. Yeah. Sometimes too. Like my wife is great. But I'll say, how does this look? And it doesn't matter what I wear. She's like, you look great. Wow. Just look at you strutting around.
She's got some problems.
Yeah. So, but you do need someone to see.
Yeah. You have some.
Yeah. So you're one of these people for me where if you guys, sometimes I get to go and I get to have a cigar with you out on your deck, or, in doing something like this. This is something for me that I get to learn.
Yeah.
I get
you get a lot of wisdom over here.
So I get morsels of wisdom, and I have to decipher and discern through that. But the idea is that someone that I love to choose people that is also in that same fight. So you're in a different element of those things, but when it comes to leading people and to leading well and being a big idea person, you're very similar to where you can put things into perspective that my brain can't handle right now.
Yeah.
And vice versa. When you have some things going on, I'm able to, give you better than morsels, probably nuggets of wisdom for you to decipher and pick through. And you do need people. And we are not meant, we weren't created to just do this all ourselves. And I know a lot of people have big shoulders, and I know a lot of people really try to just take over and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps. It's going to be me. But you need others to help you along the way.
Yeah. For you solo pastors out there, find somebody who's done this before that you can really rely on and trust. And so, like, that's a big thing. Trust. You have to be able to trust whoever that person is to not go, blab your stuff.
Yes.
That's really, really important. And this is a crucial issue because we're never meant to do this alone. And, we're talking about the race analogy. One of the things I love during cross country season is there's such a picture of the church that should be the picture of the church. These kids that are collapsing at the end of the race, and a kid sacrifices his medal just to help someone get across the finish line.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Like sacrifices his placing to pick someone else up and limp them across the finish line. And that's the picture that we need in the church. And not only that, but I love
in leadership. I think. Yeah, absolutely.
You have the guys who came across the line first. My son was a really good cross country runner. I was like third in state. But he and his buddies, they would get across the finish line, but they would be the first ones at the finish line. They clap for the other guys, cheering them on till the last person comes across.
That's amazing.
And that's the picture that we need as leaders. Like, we need to model that, but then we also need to live that out.
So then that kind of leads me to my next question is, okay, it's not just about us and our empty tanks, but when we're leaders, you see other people and their tanks are empty. And so one of the ways that as a superintendent, what I do is we try to help our staff identify at what points in the year do you typically run low? And that's a good trigger. What triggers you when you run low? Is it parent problems? Is it student discipline? Is it too many meetings? Is it whatever it is? But it's a good way to just identify, how do you know when you're about ready to do it? Because if you don't come into an understanding of, as an educator, when February and March hit and you've got assessments happening, and you're not identifying that, and you're trying to have the same conversation as you would in August and September, you're just crazy, right?
Yep.
There's just so much going on. And so how do you help others identify their boundaries to protect their own emotional and mental and spiritual energy?
Right. So boundaries are so crucial. And so those boundaries are there to be a marker for us when we are not doing okay. And so for my staff, it's one of those things that we tell each other, like, if you're on the verge of a major breakdown or struggle, you shouldn't be there, first of all, because you need to let us know ahead of time. And so transparency is a boundary that we remove. Like, we're not going to put up walls so that we can't see what we're going through. We're going to take those walls down. We're going to be able to see through,
right,
so that we can help each other get through that. So transparency is huge.
It's removing the
walls.
I love that.
Because awesome. We build up walls, and we're like, how many times has somebody asked you, Gene, like, how are you doing? And you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah, we never tell the truth.
Like, let's be real. And we just have to be honest. And to a point, there has to be like, yeah, I'm having a hard time, but I'm gutting it. I'm going to be all right. But there are times when you're really struggling, and you can't share everything with your boss, but you can be like, hey, I'm really having a hard time.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, is just being honest with where you're at in your season of difficulty. And that's something that I think is overlooked in our culture, is being able to say, oh man, I am exhausted today. So I have in the past told our central office, hey guys, I'm exhausted. I'm going to shut my door. Call me if you need me. I'm not shutting my door because I'm not doing any work. I'm shutting my door because I can't be the leader I want to be right now.
Yeah.
And then so that's what. But the problem that I've had in the past is I've stayed there too long. And so the idea is if someone's listening that's just completely over at night right now, what do you want them to know? Like, I'm over it. I'm done. Because we've all been there. You just said before, like, I'm done. I can't do this. What do you want that person to know? The one that is listening that says, I'm just done. I'm exhausted. I can't handle another person problem. I can't handle another work problem. What do you tell that person as a pastor?
Yeah. Number one, we serve the God who sees us. That's what, one of the names of God is El Lahai Rohi, which means the God who sees me.
Rolls right off the tongue.
And yes, and he sees us, and he sees our pain. He sees our hurt. I just want you to know that God sees you. And, if you're struggling and you're tired and you don't want to go on, it's important that you talk with someone that you can trust, first of all, because that can really lead to, as I said earlier in the podcast, at times I've dealt with seasons of spiritual depression as I've gone through really hard seasons. And those are seasons that you do not walk alone. You must walk with someone who you can trust. And
tell us what spiritual depression is. Okay. So for those that are really into their faith, what's your definition of that?
Yeah, so spiritual depression would be you're in the spiritual battle, right? And you're weary and you're tired. You've helped a couple work through a marriage. You've helped a family lose a daughter, right? And those can be seasons of like just despair and sadness.
Heaviness.
Yeah, real heavy. And you carry that around. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. And this morning I was just having a hard time holding it together. I was going through something with a family. And it's okay to have those, but you also have to be willing to talk to someone, because if you isolate, that's where Satan wants you. This is 1 Peter 5:8, be alert and sober mind, because the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And what animal does the lion go after? He goes after the one who's isolating, the one who's limping, who can't move. That's where we as brothers and sisters also have to recognize that. And bosses, right? Come along.
This is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
How awesome is it when, I don't know if you've ever had a boss just check in with you and ask, "Are you okay?"
I love that.
And you don't feel then burdened. You're not burdening your boss by your problems when you're as a leader and you check in with your people and you just say, "Hey, listen, I could be off here, but I get a sense that you're in it. Yeah, you're struggling right now. Do you want to talk about it?" And how freeing that is to be able to have the person that you always, as someone who's a follower, like, I need to perform in front of my boss. I need to make sure I'm doing the right thing. But when your boss comes and genuinely is interested as a leader and says, "Hey, listen, there's something's up.
I'm giving you a gold star."
Right. Well, I've earned one of those in my life, and I'm going to take it with my golden microphone.
No, that's such a great point. Like it's so cool. And that employee knows that you care.
Yeah.
Like you just, even if you don't know, like, I was telling you, like, my church administrator, she lost her husband and her mother in the same year. And so being aware of even like those birthdays, those anniversaries, it says, "Hey, I care about you. I love you."
It does. And it just allows them to not have to perform all the time, and allows them to say, "Yeah, there's some things I'm dealing with right now. And maybe there is something you can do about it and help, but maybe that's just more, I'm glad that you know this now about me." Because there is, and I know this is biblical and you would probably point to a better scripture than I would, but there is freedom in speaking it out loud. Name it and tame it type of thing. There's just a lot of freedom in saying.
You said name it to tame it, not name it to claim it.
Yeah, name it to tame it. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a big element.
Yeah.
And that's something that we as leaders have to be able to do ourselves, but also have to, go lead your people and say, hey, listen, you're not okay right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you? And then just help them. And, a lot of times I'll walk through the hallway and I'll see a teacher just frustrated. And I'll say, why don't you go get a drink, take a break? I'll take your class for 10 minutes.
That's so cool.
Come back when you're ready. And when I'm doing those things, one, I'm serving, but two, I see them.
Mm-hmm.
And three, they feel seen. And that's something that is important for all of us. As leaders, I will tell you that typically when you're in the leadership role, you should be able to help your other employees in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
The leaders that have been put in place that never helped do the job of the people that they led are always the ones that don't last very long.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that refuse to help in that area. And that's something that I would encourage all leaders to do is when you see someone on the struggle bus, that you go and help them. You allow them to be refueled. And so that's what I would say. If you're completely over it right now, just understand we've all been there and that you're not failing. You're fighting. And don't forget that. It's not about pretending you're never empty. It's just about learning where to refuel. And sometimes the most powerful leadership move you can make is to rest, not quit. Because I've had the quit mindset like you did that one time of, I just don't think I can continue to do this when I look in the long run, 10, 15 years. Most superintendents are 3 to 5 years. Wow. And I am 38 years old. And I need to make it till at least 56 years old. And there's a lot of times, Matt, where I am just thinking, how in the world can I do this for 20 more years?
Yeah.
And so it's tough.
I keep increasing that. When I first started, I'm like, okay, if I can survive like 10 years, I'm almost there, 10 years. And I think you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think that's the other principle in this is if you're tired and you've rested and you're like, I'm still struggling. Okay. What do you have to do? Well, you have to go forward.
I like what you just said there because even slow steps still move forward.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't always have to run with the torch.
So the biblical principle in this, Proverbs 16:9, is that in his heart a man plans his course, but God establishes his steps.
Yeah.
And so the idea there in the picture there is not that God's going to just walk for you. It's that I'm going to plan and I'm going to move forward. And as I move forward, God is going to establish those steps.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And that's so reassuring to know. And those that are struggling is, step one is to pray. Step two is to invite the Holy Spirit. Step three is to go find. Yeah. Just move forward. And sometimes it feels like you're just going backwards, but even the smallest steps still move forward.
Right. And make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who are life-giving. I think one of the things that some leaders deal with are a lot of negativity, a lot of negative people. And sometimes you have control over that. And sometimes you don't. As a leader, hopefully you're a part of the hiring process, but you want to look for people with some tenacity and some people that they're not perfect, but you're like, okay, this person's not going to give up on me.
Bucket fillers. Yeah. So that's when we hire, the very first thing that we is the first screener that we go with, are you a positive person that I would love to work with?
Yeah.
Ahead of, do you understand content? Ahead of, are you a great teacher foundationally? Ahead of all of those is, are you a positive person that I just want to be around?
Yeah.
And because when you look at the longevity of every position, you need to be around bucket fillers. I think John Gordon explains them as energy vampires. You got to be able to recognize those people that are life sucking and either one, lead them through that and say, you cannot continue to do this, not just for me, but for everyone else. But also, you have to be able to recognize to say, it might be time for you to go.
Yeah.
And, I think every leader has had someone, at least at some point in the position of, I can't talk to you without feeling drained.
Yeah. And the more positive you are as a pastor, the more life-giving you are as a church, it's going to expose the bad fruit. It's going to expose those who may get pruned. And they be people that maybe have been there for years, but they bring such an aura of negativity that you don't want that.
Yes.
And so it's okay. Continue to be you, continue to love people, and God is going to take care of you. He's going to like weed those out. And I've seen it happen in our ministry where we had some prominent members in the church who got pruned out because of their negativity.
Yes. Yeah.
And then good fruit can grow.
And that's kind of the main idea for this podcast episode is, guys, we've all been there. So I have some points that I just want to leave everyone with before we.
So you're basically saying I'm being long-winded and cut me out.
Actually, you've had so many morsels. I've amended my points to adapt to you. So just, I don't want to blow smoke too far at you. No, come on. You got to earn that.
And Buffalo's helmet up here.
Oh my gosh, there's too much Coach Prime up here, guys. So let me lead you with this. All right. So
sorry.
All right, being tired doesn't mean you're failing. That's point number one. It just means you're fighting. So I want everyone to remember that. Point number two is leadership is not about pretending you're never empty. It's just knowing where to refuel. That's point number two. Point number three is just sometimes the most powerful leadership move, like the boss move that you can make, is to rest. And that's what we talked about, how important that is, the Sabbath day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then your just purpose isn't canceled because you're tired. Even slow steps still move forward. What do you think about those points?
I love them. And I think that's it. Like, don't give up. Like, keep moving forward.
Just keep swimming, as the famous Finding Nemo quote
I
would
hope
say.
that, for you guys, like we were those guys that came alongside you and we're picking you up and carrying you across the finish line. And I hope you'll find people in your life that will help you do that.
Yeah. So maybe you're not at full speed right now, but still lead with heart, still lead with purpose. Leadership was never about being the strongest one in the room. It's never about that. It's just about being real, faithful. It's a beautiful thing. Knowing when to rest, not just to push. And so today, give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, to refill, and to remember this. Even slow steps still move you forward. You're not alone. You're not weak. You're not worn. And you can be healed, okay? So don't give up. Rest, reconnect, and come back stronger. So this is Holy Grit Leadership that lasts with Matt and Gene. We hope you enjoyed this podcast episode of Leading When You're Tired and Frustrated. We hope you all have a blessed day.